comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
Yeah, this is one I know, I don't lose it after this. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Alan Blumkin on the Comfortably Zone Radio Network. And today I'm here with my co-host, David Finoli, for another session of Pittsburgh Sports. And we're going to be discuss the Pirates and their problems in this session. Welcome, David.
Hey, Al. How you doing?
Okay. It's very, very tough to discuss them after this particular loss last night. This was as bad as the one the week before against the Cardinals when they blew an 8-5 lead in the ninth inning. So I'd like to get your take on what they have to do to fix the relievers, if that's at all possible.
Well, that's the problem. I think right now, from an offensive end, the team is better than it was last year. The bench is more solid. There are more options. The starting rotation, which at the beginning of the year we both said was more long on prospective talent than it was on what it's actually showed in the past. But they have started, except for Trevor Williams, who's kind of backed up a little bit.
Yeah.
The group has really started to come around a little bit, not where they need to be, but they've come around. So that leaves you with a group of young, unproven arms that have really not got the job done, and is really the difference between this team competing with the Brewers and where it is right now. Last night, a prime example where you have a 5-0 lead. You call on the bullpen and just it blows up. I mean, I don't know what the fix is. You go to the minors, and Neverauskas was probably the best of the group down there, and he really was awful when he was here for his first stint. So I'm not sure that that's going to help much either. I think going out and trying to get some help outside, which it doesn't appear like they're too aggressive to do.
Well, basically, there's outside the Yankees and maybe one or two other teams. Everybody's having, a lot of teams are having bullpen problems. And one of the things I think is that, they pull the starters at X number of pitches.
Right.
And they expect these relievers to come in every day and be effective. And if a lot of them were any good, they'd be starters. And it just doesn't work that way. I thought that Felice and, Vasquez had gotten to be solid after the first game of the season blow-up.
Right.
And they were for a while, and then all of a sudden they lost it. I mean, that game with the Cardinals last week, when Vasquez gave up 5 runs in the bottom of the ninth, after they had battled back from a 5-4 deficit to go ahead 8-5, were horrible. And I really don't know what the answer is. Sometimes the hitting is bad, like when they got one hit the other day, 2 hits off of Waka, and then the 1 hit by the Cubs with Lester. And on Pirate Chat, there have been a lot of criticism for playing Rodriguez and Polanco.
Well, and it's warranted. It's certainly warranted criticism. I mean, right now, Rodriguez is in the middle of his second just extremely disappointing season. I was talking to a friend of mine, Bill Rainier, who we've had on the show a couple of times last week, and we were both at a loss for the last guy who hit under 200 2 years in a row, who had a bobblehead day.
Yeah.
So I'm just at a loss for what he sees in Rodriguez. He's not even giving a decent defensive effort. He cost a couple games himself with just poor defense in the infield. And at some point in time, you just got to put Polanco down for an extended period of time on the bench. Austin Meadows, his hot streak is not going to continue all season like this. So you've got to take advantage of it now while he's just playing at a level that's been incredible. But to have these four guys rotating when three of them are obvious answers to be in the outfield, and even Polanco has just a lazy thought process sometimes when he's playing out there. He doesn't seem to judge the balls well. He doesn't seem to hustle after them when he misses them all the time consistently. And there have been plenty of guys that have probably taken an extra base that probably shouldn't have. That's important.
You think Hurdle is out with his usefulness on the team? I know they gave him a new 4-year deal after last season. Where most of the Pirate fans were very, very upset about that. But I know that this team is not in the business of paying people not to manage,
right?
Given their tightness. Yeah. And but do you think that they've reached a point where a lot of them are tuning Hurdle out?
It almost seems like that. I think probably one of the bigger problems, at least in my mind, is sometimes you just get the feeling like he's trying to get everybody play time rather than let's put our best 8 guys out there, and then every so often we'll give somebody a day off. I think it sometimes just makes no sense. I mean, I know Adam Frazier hasn't been what they expected him to be, and they have sent him down to the minors temporarily until I'm assuming they get Cervelli back in the lineup consistently. But in my mind, I would put an Adam Frazier at second or short. He's not a good defensive player there, but at least he's going to hit 40 or 50 points higher than Rodriguez. For the life of me, I just don't grasp what he's trying to do here.
It's very, very hard. I think, with exceptions, after a certain period of time, that players. I also think there's a problem with a player that's making, say, $3 or $4 million. That there's basically no incentive to improve because they're going to get paid whether they play well or they don't play well.
Well, and that's a problem I do think that all sports have. I look at criticism, for example, that Mike Tomlin gets with the Steelers on, why can't he keep these players under control? There's nobody, in my mind, in professional sports that has that nailed. I think that's a problem in sports where these guys have money to burn once they make it to the major leagues, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and
the players dictate basically.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a pitcher on the Diamondbacks named Patrick Corbin who has been outspoken about his desire to play with the Yankees. When you're under contract to somebody,
right.
Don't do that's something you shouldn't do.
Right. I
now, if you want to go, you play out your contract and go, but you don't advertise it that you want to play somewhere else when you're under contract to somebody.
Right.
When you're under contract to somebody.
And I do think you get that feel in just about every sport. I talking to friends of mine who are NBA fans, and I've always been a big Cleveland Cavalier fan. I mean, it looks like these teams give up at some point in time, and it just gets frustrating as heck. And I think that's part of it. But I do think in this situation, we maybe have seen people tune Hurdle out a little bit.
Well, LeBron and the owner don't get along at all. And LeBron has indicated that he's tired of dragging these guys every year. And there's, outside that one time when they beat them a couple of years ago, that that he just can't single-handedly drag this team once they get into the finals. And once they lost that first game like that, and a couple of really, really horrible calls, I think they just, plus the fact that he said he's playing with a broken hand, that they just couldn't compete with the Warriors.
Well, they couldn't compete with them, and they were going to have trouble winning anyway. But, I mean, all this talk about Michael Jordan or LeBron James is, to me, a superior talent to him. But that's the difference right there. In the huddle at the end of the first half, or at the end of regulation after they blew the game in game one, Michael Jordan would have been intense, helping to get the players focused on the task at hand in overtime. He's complaining about what happened, and LeBron is complaining about what happened at the end of the game, and then he punches something and breaks his hand, and pretty much you're shot at that point. So.
Yeah, one of the things on the Facebook sites that I don't respond to ever, because I learned my lesson early. I don't respond to who's better than who. Because it's a losing battle.
You can
it's
never
really
tell.
a losing battle.
Yeah. Yeah, I personally think I don't get into arguments with people because you're right. You don't know who's better. I mean, I look at it from a standpoint, who would I want if I was starting a team?
Look, a couple of years ago, I got into a discussion on who was better, Yogi or Johnny Bench. Mm-hmm. And I'm a very big Yogi fan. And then after I put something down, I realized that 95% of these people never saw Berra play. And then, of course, you're getting to the point where Johnny Bench retired in 1983.
Right.
And a huge percentage of these people never saw Johnny Bench play.
Right.
So I learned from that never get into comparisons at all on Facebook because it's pointless.
It can be tough. I mean, bottom line though, what I say to everybody, and I say about LeBron and Michael Jordan is, I'd kill to have both of them on my team. They are two of the greatest players of all time, and when you are comparing them, I always make note of that you're just it's not
somebody put a 10 top NBA player list, but nobody was before 1990. So that's Allen Iverson and certain of these others that on there, and I just looked at it. I said, I resisted the temptation.
Yeah, it's the what I like to call the ESPN.
Oh, ESPN, right? Nothing happened before ESPN. Yeah.
Right, and that's, if you look at their ratings, they'll always throw in one guy from the 1920s and 30s, and everybody else is from the 1990s and beyond, just to make it look like they've tried to look it up. But
going back to the Pirates, I mean, it's just very, very. Last night, especially, a number of people who were able to watch this were totally disheartened by Joe Marek, who puts up the posts, Pirates win number or whatever. And I put down, when he puts that up, I put up the statement that they make at horse racing that this result is now official. When he puts his post up, and he put up yesterday after they took Musgrove out that here we go again before he even started, and it's just that they bring up a number of teams do this. They have guys that they can option out every couple of days, and when somebody falls apart, they bring the same guy back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth, like Neverauskas.
And
if they prove that they couldn't do the job before, they bring him back, and they still can't do the job.
No, and he quite frankly is probably the most major league ready person they have at that level, which is a shame. I mean, it is truly a shame that they're Shugel's he's not going to be back anytime soon. Smoker has pitched better down there, but I think he's proved in his short
he was awful with the Mets.
And he was awful.
He was awful with the Mets here, and I mean, after they made that trade several years ago when they traded Neil Walker to the Mets for John Neese, and I went ballistic over that because John Neese stunk with the Mets. Yeah, and I knew he was going to be a disaster with the Pirates, which he turned out to be. You don't want to take Met rejects. No, and he stunk there, and and I understand the thought process of keeping Ivan Nova, who pitched fine on Sunday in the series finale against the Cubs. But Nick Kingham has been probably your most consistent pitcher at this point in time. And
I just don't think it's the best move, though. Use him as the one who's going to be knocked out of the rotation at this point.
Well, he can be. He has options. That's what they do.
I understand,
now.
but
yeah.
you were fighting for. Not that it was realistic you were going to win the division or get in the playoffs, but at least you were there, and you know, you owe it to the organization at that point in time to put your best foot forward. And
you know, they were 26-17 at one point.
Right.
Since then, they're 6-17, 6-16, which is a 6-17, which is a .261 percentage. We're talking 1962 Met territory.
Right, but this is a team out of those 17 losses. I'd venture to guess 6 or 7 of them were not just winnable, but should have been won. The bullpen they not only blew games. You're going to blow games as a bullpen, but you're talking 3 to 5 run leads late in the game, which rarely.
Well, that Cardinal game last Friday was, it was unbelievable.
Sure. And
8-5 in the bottom of the ninth, and he gives up a 3-run home run to the backup shortstop, who's playing because of the regular shortstop's injured.
Right.
Back gives a 3-run home run to the backup shortstop to lose the game altogether. And he leaves them in. That's another thing about Hurdle. He sees these guys are having, he's quick to pull. A few people have pointed this out. He's quick to pull starters.
Yeah.
But when it gets to his relievers, he'll let them stay in there, even though they show after 1 or 2 batters that they don't have anything.
Right, and that's a problem. Last night is a key example where Musgrove, he comes up, he does exactly what he should have after their reliever was over the top wild, and he hits the guy, and then he walks somebody. Okay, he's in trouble, but he hasn't thrown that many pitches at that point. There was no reason to pull him out. You're absolutely right. I would feel more comfortable him battling out of the situation than bringing in some of these guys night after night. For a bullpen, you're right. For a bullpen to be successful, starters have to average 6 1/3 to 7 innings a game. And but on the other end, you're being told they're tired, blah blah blah. These guys have pitched 20 innings in 60 games. So, there should be a point in time where you should expect some of these guys to be able to come out every other day consistently, because that's not a lot of innings in the realm of things. So but again, that's pitching today. That's not necessarily a Pirate-only thing.
Yeah, when they played, I think it was Sunday.
Yeah.
It was Saturday. His friend of mine calls me up. They got 1 run. The game was on TV here on the MLB, and they scored 1 run in the top of the first. So his friend of mine calls up. You should be optimistic and blah blah blah. And I said to him, they're going to give it right back. And they gave up 2 runs in the bottom. They lost that game 3-1.
Yeah.
And
and again,
he says, "How did you know?" I said, "I know this team."
Yeah.
And what they call shutdown innings, they're very, very bad. And when you start a shutdown inning with a walk,
right,
which drives me absolutely crazy. You're supposed to, you have fielders out there. You're supposed to let them hit the ball every once in a while.
Right.
And when you can't find the plate, the story was that when Blask had his problems in 1973 when he lost it all, Murtaugh went out there and Murtaugh wasn't there in 73. Mm-hmm. He came back in 74, right after.
No, he came back in 73. Verdon.
Yeah, that's right, 73. You're right.
And
Yeah.
Murtaugh.
Blass says that I can't find the plate, so Murtaugh says it's been in the same place for the last 100 years.
And he's right.
And Satchel Paige said one of his great quotes was, "Home plate don't move."
Yeah. Yeah.
But when they're walking, when they can't find the plate, and then they can't find the plate for a couple of batters, they just get so frustrated that they try to get something over the plate and they groove it, and it gets clobbered.
Well, and looking down at the at the walks in the bullpen, most of these guys have anywhere between 4.5 walks per 9 innings and 6 walks per 9 innings.
That's terrible.
A horrible stat. That's a horrible stat.
That's really, really terrible.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, a lot of that's on Huntington, who before the season, I mean, I don't think there was anyone comfortable with the bullpen. I liked the young arms of the bullpen, and I thought there was potential. But, of course, you didn't know Vasquez was going to certainly melt down as he has. And that's a pride. Last year he had great control. This year he's walked 12 in 25 innings, so that's certainly not a great figure. But, you know, these guys have not done it. And you look at Indianapolis, and I'm just taking a look at them here, and there is nothing there to come up and solve this problem. Clay Holmes is probably the most successful of guys. He's having an awful season down there, and he's walking 5 guys every 9 innings, which is horrible. So he needs to go out and see what's out there at this point in time. See, maybe if there's a guy they might, you know, I wouldn't even mind somebody coming in who maybe somebody DFA'd who Sirich can work with and hopefully make them successful, because right now what they have is bad, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better, and it's starting to get frustrating. I mean, I'm looking, you know, we were talking earlier about Kingham being dropped. He's got a whip under 1. He's walking 1.8 batters for every 9 innings, which is phenomenal. I mean, all his peripheral stats are tremendous. Among being your most consistent pitcher over the last few weeks. And again, here's a guy who now, I mean, unless one of the starters get hurt, you know.
So I want to caution you about Nova, because if you look at his career and his track record when he was here with the Yankees, he had a big 16-4 season in his. He didn't pitch much his first year. The second year, he was 16-4, and he steadily went downhill.
Yeah,
that's why the Yankees put him up, for grabs. And I know when the Pirates got him, he was sensational, and the time he spent with them when he first came over there. But he progressively has gotten worse with the Yankees as his career went on. So I'm not sold on him. I don't think he's equipped mentally to be an ace, a stopper.
No, he's nowhere near.
Somebody suggested that Jim Howell suggested that they bring back either Elroy Face, who's 90, to Colby or Giusti to be a stopper.
Well, right at this point in time, I mean, how much worse could that be? I mean, you look at it, and I think with a guy like him, just like a guy like Liriano, once you get used to what he's throwing, because they don't have dominant stuff.
Yeah.
Once the league gets used to what they're doing, it seems like, they start failing. I mean, even last year, or the year before, when Liriano went to Toronto at first, he was great. It looked like a
they got used to him. I think he's on the Tigers now. He's going to clobbered. Yeah.
Yeah, because the league gets used to that. They don't have the stuff they used to, and you're just going to be sucking it up as a number 5 guy and hope that you can survive. And Novo seems like he's going to give you 1 or 2 good efforts, and then all of a sudden that ball gets up.
Well, you know who the Indians picked up? I didn't even realize this until a close friend of mine, who's a huge Indian fan, told me they picked up Oliver Perez.
Yes, they did.
He's a one-out lefty specialist, and in some cases the talent is so thin that these guys, especially if they're left-handed, no matter how many times they get released by somebody, they'll be picked up.
Right, and the talent is very thin, and that's a big part of the problem. But it just seems like the Pirates, even though everybody else seems to be having issues, the Pirates are having the most issues by far.
And they seem that they're going to be locked in, fourth in that division, because I don't think they're bad enough to, to get behind Cincinnati.
No,
but, the other 3 are pulling away from them now.
Well, and you look at that staff. There is talent on this team to win 80, 83, 84 games. I just don't know what you're going to do at this point. And again, when you're in a slump, the other day they're in a slump, and he decides to put both Rodriguez and Polanco in a lineup, and they get one hit. Well,
yeah,
you know, you're not you don't put in two Mario Mendozas to decide to turn a game around or a slump around.
Well, Huntington is going to make an appearance at the convention. I imagine he's not going to take questions, or when the Sabre does, when they have a controversial person like they had. I wasn't there because I couldn't make several of them. They had Clemens at one, and he was there to talk about his experience in college, and they had Barry Bonds in the one in Miami, and they filtered questions. They put your questions down, and the people up front would decide what to ask them. So of course, all the controversial stuff got thrown out, and what was from what people told me, what was left was puffballs. And I think probably the same thing is going to be with Huntington.
Yeah. Oh, he's not going to.
He's not going to answer anything that's controversial at all.
No, and quite frankly, anytime the press asks him something controversial, he almost seems irritated that they would think such a thing, and the answers, it's not the answers you get, and sometimes I just don't know that there's a feeling of respect.
Well, they have the Mets have Sandy Alderson here, and the Mets are besides the fact that they won the other day against the Yankees, they've been terrible, and they're playing at the same pace as the Pirates since their 11-1 start, and they should be in Washington if you don't want to answer questions that are controversial.
That's about it, and
yeah.
I mean, the Mets are certainly in a place like the Pirates. I actually think the Pirates are in a better position at this point.
Yeah, so do I.
The one thing I will say about this team that might give hope for a second half is they're just so young, and they do show a lot of potential going down, especially the pitching staff. Which basically you take you take Nova out of the mix. You're a bunch of kids, 25 to 26. So there is hope that, and there is a lot of potential in there. But, I mean, you do have to ask the question when so many guys seem to succeed once they get out of here.
No, one of the things.
Are we training them the right way coming up through the system?
No, I think one of the problems is the Mets have a farm team in the short season pony league at Brooklyn called the Brooklyn Cyclones, and a friend of mine went to a game last year. The starting pitcher went 5, and this is the lowest level of professional ball, and they brought in a different relief pitcher each of the last of four innings. I think that's the way they've been trained now. Is they've been trained, not the stars are being trained not to go more than 6.
Right.
Which to me is crazy, and maybe I'm old school. But I get amazed every time they let somebody stay in to pitch a complete game nowadays. Yeah,
and you know, you're not wrong. And at some point in time, in my eyes, what's going to happen? Because I mean, I don't know. I don't have stats in front of me. Tommy John surgery now versus in the day.
Well, there were a lot of pitchers in the 50s and 60s who, blew their arms out after 1 or 2 big seasons. I'm thinking particularly of Frank Larry, who in 1961 was 23-9 and blew his arm out in a game that was played in an ice bowl the next season in Detroit because they sold it out in April. And he hung around for a few more years, but he was never effective again. They had a lot of guys like that, during whose careers probably could have been salvaged by Tommy John, but that's not in the. That wasn't in the an option back then.
But I don't know that it's because of the fact they pitched 8 and 9 innings then compared to 5 or 6 now. I think we haven't prepared them. I listened to Max Scherzer talking the other day, talking about why he's so successful, and his comment kind of was to the point of how these guys used to stretch themselves out early. He goes, I don't stop throwing. He goes, my arm gets sore when I try to stop throwing and rest it. So in the off season, I'm always throwing. And
I think
guy can come out and give you 8-9 innings a game.
I think the analytics have shown that they go by basically the third time a pitcher goes through the order, they lose effectiveness.
Right, which I think a lot of it is because they're not stretched out properly.
They're not stretched out, and they're not prepared to tough it out.
Right.
So they get into a jam late innings, boom, they're out of the game. Even though their stuff may be still better than what they have in the setup man in the bullpen. It's an old school who watched the Warren Spahns and the Robin Roberts and the Gibsons, Marichals, and Koufaxes, who would you imagine a manager going out to Bob Gibson and said, "Well, you've reached your pitch count, you're coming out."
The manager wouldn't have made it back alive.
No,
I agree with you.
No, you go back to back in the days to pitchers like Early Wynn. It was really, really mean. They shoot themselves in the foot before they would come out of a game voluntarily.
I agree with you, and I wonder sometimes, and I don't like the concept, but I wonder sometimes if they'd be just better off stretching these guys out, using a 6-man rotation, get your 6 best pitchers in there, and just pushing them 7-8 innings because they know they're going to have 5 days rest instead of 4.
Well, a lot of these staffs don't have five decent starters. The Yankees, Tanaka, they play an interleague series with the Mets. And Tanaka started Friday night, and he got on base through an error and then pulled both hamstrings, scoring.
Right.
So of course, then the whole DH thing came up again. And, for the National League to use DH and make it universal because Tanaka was hurt. So the number 2 starter is going to be out for a while. So they're bringing up guys. From what I read in the paper, they're bringing up a guy from Double-A to start this week because what they have they don't feel what they have in Triple-A is ready.
Right.
So, and they bring up these guys, they send them back. Somebody goes on the DL and they bring them back, and they're not effective. I think every team is like that.
Yeah.
Certain pitchers now that have 6 ERAs and even 7 ERAs that are being started by certain teams at this stage.
But the difference between them and a Yankees is the fact they've adapted to the juice ball era in New York. I mean, right now you have 5 or 6 guys in double digits homers, and I believe Tyler Austin has 8. Pittsburgh has nobody there. I mean, Francisco Cervelli has 9 home runs, which to me is probably more a fluke. You're probably only going to see him get 1 or 2 in the second half. But the teams that have adjusted to the fact this is starting to be a hitting era again.
No, they either strike out, walk, or hit home runs, basically.
Yeah, and the Pirates have not been in that mode, but
and not every team has a Jose Altuve or a Francisco Lindor or people like that who have very high on base percentages without hitting home runs.
Yeah, but the other thing that I think and we don't talk about is we built this. You look at the draft picks over the last 7-8 years, and we've built this system on pitching. But we've put one of the worst infields defensively, consistently, including this year, which has just been horrendous. And you're going to see a lot of those pitching staffs' ERAs go up incredibly because there's at least a couple times every game that they're giving up a couple runs on plays that a guy with good range would have gotten. Or a bumble here and a bumble there. And it's not just one or two times. It's a consistent thing where Colin Moran, and I know everybody says Jordy Mercer has had the highest fielding percentage in the
fielding percentage doesn't matter
because
Richie Ashburn in the 1950s had more putouts than Duke Snyder or Willie Mays, and that's because their pitching staff threw fly balls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it really doesn't. It really doesn't matter if you can't. And the ultimate from the 50s that was Ted Kluszewski, who had always would beat Gil Hodges out for the highest fielding percentage at first base, but he couldn't move off a dime.
Right, and that's Mercer. I mean, Mercer can catch the ball that's right to him. He can't go well to his right. He can't go well to his left. So,
now if you have pitchers that throw ground balls, that's not good.
Which is what this philosophy is. We want guys who are going to have a high percentage of ground balls. Well, then you need to start figuring out how to put people in there. Is
Moran a disaster at third base?
He's not a disaster, but he's the same way. He's got a stronger arm than I expected.
Yeah.
He can't move to either way. He does okay with the balls that get to him, but he's not going to get it either way. So I mean, and he's probably the best of the group. Harrison has the range, but I just think the guy gets such bad breaks on the ball that sometimes routine plays look spectacular with him. I don't think he's a good defensive player. I think he has good range out of the group, but I don't call him a good defensive player for that.
Because he got hurt again last night.
He got beamed. I mean, that was the problem. He got hit in the helmet, and he ended up leaving the game midway. I'm sure he was having headaches or something. I mean, it was pretty bad. But that's always going to be a problem, and it's not like these guys are the greatest hitters in baseball. So you're getting poor defensive play in the infield, and you're not really making it up by great.
Oh wow! Is Frieza that bad in the field too?
Same thing.
Wow.
Same thing. He can't move. They can't move. I mean, Bell is better than he was last year. Still bad at handling the ball. Much less he can't move. I thought the base hit that scored the first run for the Arizona last night is a play that a good defensive first baseman might have made.
But he has to be better than Alvarez.
He's probably better than, well, he's on par with Alvarez. Let's say
that's not saying a hell of a lot either.
Yeah, it's just
but that's very bad. If you have a ground ball staff and you have fielders that have no range, that's very, very bad.
Right, which I absolutely agree with you with. I think that's probably one thing that gets overlooked when we complain about pitching is, there's something when I look at other infields and see these guys making plays to their left and to their right that probably stop a hit or two a game. And in a game that one or two hits could make a difference in a game, that's often.
Well, the Yankees have two sensational, basically rookies, Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar, playing second and third. And these guys not only can hit so far, they can field. Yeah. And Didi Gregorius, who's the shortstop, who's not hitting, has more range than Jeter ever had.
Yeah.
And defensively, they're very good, which helps a lot.
Yes, it absolutely does.
And Judge, one of the things I overlook about Aaron Judge is that he's a very, very good right fielder. And he catches everything, and he has a gun for an arm. He does.
Yeah. He's more of a complete player than he gets credit for. I agree with you. I mean, I as much as I used to criticize Cashman having the biggest payroll and never being able to come up with a winning, because the expectation in New York is to win the World Series. And
having the fits with the Red Sox, and one of those two teams was going to probably wind up playing a wild card game.
Right, and but I give him credit for what he's done over the last couple of years. He broke the team down. He got great prospects coming up. He did a wonderful job getting that, and then he supplemented it by signing free agents the next year. So he has built what could be the strongest Yankee team
in a long time.
It's
funny because you look at the American League standings, and basically the 5 playoff spots are settled already. It's the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Indians, the Astros, and of all teams, the Mariners, who have been playing lights out since Cano went on the suspended list.
Yeah.
They're breaking away. The National League is much more, much more fluid.
Yeah, so, I mean, it'll be, I mean, there's some strong teams in the American League for sure, but
there's some very bad teams also.
Right.
The Orioles are under 300. I mean, they beat the Mets 2 games here last week. Mets scored 1 run in 2 games against them. But they've reverted to form with, lately, and they're 19-45. That's under 300, and somebody put down that they're on pace to win 48 games.
Yeah, which is a shame, and it puts to rest, the big market, high spending owner theory. Because here's a guy that he spent a lot of money over the years, and I believe the Orioles have a decent TV contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they made a decision to give first baseman Chris Davis $140 million for 7 years, and the guy may have one of the worst hitting years for any regular in baseball history. Right. And he still gets paid.
Yeah, he absolutely does, and that shows there. It's not always just throwing money at problems.
Yeah, and Machado is not going to stay there, and their pitching is, the pitching is pretty bad. So I mean, this team is, so you have the Orioles, you have the White Sox, you have Kansas City, the 3 very, very bad teams, and they generally get beaten up, and that's why the American League. The spread is so big. I mean, I think the only team that has a chance to possibly crash the 5 teams I mentioned is probably the Angels, but they're short on pitching.
Well,
so it may be settled already, and the National League will be much more interesting because a bunch of teams have the opportunity to get into the postseason.
Right. Absolutely. But it should be interesting. But I hopefully. Some of these young arms in the bullpen start to bounce out of it a little bit. The last 2 appearances by Vasquez, he looked a lot better.
Yes, I put down on the Pirate shot I put on last night was a lot of dispiriting loss.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with the Cardinal game last week.
Without it
really, I think digs into a team's psyche when they keep losing games like last night.
Sure, last night.
The offense probably says, well, we put up our share of runs, and the pitchers can't hold it.
Right. And it becomes a problem. I mean, as I said, I'm not sure I think Feliz at some point in time needs to go back to the minors. I do believe he has some options left because he's just not getting better up here.
I know he's getting absolute worse, and the thing is on the management is you bring these guys in game after game after game, even though they fall on hard times, and when it's like they did last year with Hudson.
Yeah.
Every time they brought him in, you knew it was going to be a disaster at a certain point.
Right. Absolutely. As I said, I'm not sure what the solution is up here at this point in time, but that's the one thing's for sure. It doesn't seem like we're making a lot of maneuvers trying to find a solution.
Okay, I think that you've got to get back to work, right?
Yeah.
All right, I appreciate the time. And what minor league game are you going to see tonight?
I am going to see. It's actually a college all-star league, like the Cape Cod League. It's in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's a prospect league, and I like to get out there once or twice a year because you see some good potential draft talent. Yeah,
maybe more entertaining than major league games at this point.
You know what? Everybody's hustling, and it is a good atmosphere there, and they have a great ballpark that the Grays and the Crawfords used to play in. And
they use wooden bats.
They use wooden bats, yes.
Yeah, not like college where I can't watch college games because I can't stand watching aluminum bats.
Yeah, absolutely. But
No, enjoy yourself, and
should be fun.
We'll do this again in a couple of weeks. Hopefully, you can make it to the conference next week, and we'll do it in a couple of weeks, and hopefully things will be better by then.
Sounds good, Al.
Okay, thank you for your time.
All right, buddy.
Okay, you take care. Bye-bye.